Right, so some of you may recognize this from a previous video. It's where I exploded a plug and made it into a block of resin. And one thing that didn't necessarily show up on the camera, but is kind of a thing, is the surface finish on this resin isn't great. I only had the sandpapers up to 600 grit. And so I want to make it better, but also I want to show you guys what it's like, what each level of sandpaper looks like when polishing resin. So I've made a little jig that this is going to sit in. We're just going to focus on one side for the video, but I will do all of it. But we're going to focus on this side here. So I'll try and get shots of each layer as we do it. Can you see? So you can kind of see with the light on it like it is, all these little score marks and lines. It's quite hard to see at any other angle, but you can see the finish isn't great. So, and that's 600 grit and polished. So with our sanding chest, we're going to start here and we're going to work up, and then we're going to work up this way. So, first one first, we're going to start at 60. This is a 60 grit finish. 80 grits. And that's 80 grit. 100 grit. That's 100 grit. So 120. And I think the steps start getting a little bit bigger now, so we're going to do a 150. Okay, so that's a 150 grit finish. 180 next. That's a 180 grit finish. Right, so 240 is about as high as you would do a piece of wood. There's very few circumstances where going higher than 240 is actually beneficial to you. So you can see it's slowly getting closer and closer to being able to see the things on the inside again. So we're going from 240 up to 320. So when you're doing this, it's really important that, especially on these high grit levels, that you check to make sure you've got rid of all the big score marks from the previous level. A 400 grit. So again, you can see the things are getting clearer in here. Next one's going to be 600. This is as good as we got this one before giving it a polish. So, and because this one is wet and dry paper, we're going to start using a little bit of water as well as we do this, and it will help us see the pattern come out as we do this. So, that's it, so squirt the water towards the electrical items. So we're going to give this a little, and this will stop these finer papers burning the resin as well if you've got a lot to do, and keep the really fine dust down too. Right, because we're using wet and dry now, we want to sand it wet but give it a little dry in between, and this will help us see if we've missed any of the coarser score marks. And so that is what it looked like before we polished it last time. Yeah, but this time, because I've got all the grits now, or a lot of them, we're going to keep working our way up. So next we're going up to 800. So you can see now it's getting really smooth, and a little bit of water on here practically makes the whole thing clear. You've got 1200 next. Now, I've never seen anybody sand wood up this high. Would anybody leave a like if you want to see me have a go at sanding wood to see how it looks after you sand it all the way up through all the sandpaper grades. So that is at 1200 and it's practically see-through without any polish on it whatsoever. But we have more. To 1500 next. So that is 1500 finish on it with no polish whatsoever. Next we go up to 2000 and they've turned purple. Don't know why. So that is a 2000 grit finish with no polish to 3000. These jumps are getting bigger now. Also, notice how the sandpaper's given up having holes in it. It's expecting you to sand these wet, so you don't want to suck this water up into your filter system. And that is 3000 grit. You can feel the difference between this and these sides now, because the sides are still at 600 at this point. 4000 next. So we are now at 4000 grit, but we're not done yet, because we've got 5000 next.
And I think I've got all the scratches out.
The point is, it's very clear. 7000. You can see how little material it's taking off now.
Oh, there was a bit of grit.
And last but not least, we have 10,000. See how shiny 10,000 makes it. Okay, so I don't know if you can tell. Further away. This, it still has some marks on it because I got a bit of I think I got a bit of sawdust in there. But when you compare it to one of these sides, so this side was sanded to 600 then polished, and you can see all the scratches still in it, and then you compare it to this side and you can see it's still got some scratches because it wasn't thorough enough. But you can see how much shinier it is, and that's without any polish yet. So in the next stage, I'm going to give it a polish and hope the polish is fine enough. See, look, here's some of the grit that appeared. Right, so we're going to use some of this. It's just a polishing compound and a sponge. So we'll just put a couple of little and so now you can kind of see how, not opaque, but it is clear and it is clean, but everything's a little bit fuzzy this way. You might not be able to tell on the camera, but this way everything is so much clearer. And this is the side we've just polished, so we're going to do it to the rest of it. But I'll stop boring you enough there. Whole video on sanding, which no one finds interesting. So if you liked random tool tips and you want more, then please remember to subscribe to the channel, and I will see you next week. Also, don't forget about the importance of cleaning up your workplace before you start working, because otherwise you end up with grit in the thing you don't want grit in.